Development Assessment Panel meeting this morning. My name's Clayton Hyam. I'm the presiding member, and with me here is Ms. Lindsay Baxter, the deputy presiding member, and Mr. John Syme, the third specialist member. And also welcome to Council or Mayor Clune and Councillor Collie. I'll declare the meeting open at 9:34 and acknowledge the traditional owners and pay respects to elders past and present, the land upon which we're meeting today. This is being live streamed, so just for the benefit of those who are not familiar with these meetings, members will occasionally look to their technical devices, electronic devices for information, so just to let you know that. There are no apologies listed. There are no members being listed as on leave of absence, and minutes from previous meetings are available on the DAP website. Moving to the Part B for the City of Greater Geraldton. I just need to seek declarations of due consideration. All members familiar with the material before you this morning? Yes, thank you. Councillor? Yes, thank you very much. Are there any disclosures of interest?
No.
No? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the item, which is the bulky goods showroom and motor vehicle repair premises. There is no presentation, but I believe the architect is. Yes, I'm wondering if we could ask you some questions if you wanted to come over to the. Sure. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I have a question in relation to the landscaping and whether there's an opportunity to put trees in the car park.
I'm assuming you're talking about the car park at the front. There's two sections.
Yes, yeah.
We provided quite a bit of landscaping to the south boundary to create a buffer with the existing residential lots through there. There are some existing trees along the verge which we are retaining as well. There are some areas indicated for landscaping on the site plan, which we could definitely put some landscaping in there.
But not in the car park? Well,
some of those
shade trees?
It's possible, yeah, no, we could do that. But on what kind of rate are you looking at?
Oh, I'd be asking the city to provide some advice on that, but it would be probably just to put some additional words into the request for a landscaping plan to consider trees in the car park.
Yeah, we wouldn't be adverse to that.
The other question I've got is in relation to, and I know the current BCF has those large gas tanks for refilling gas bottles, and that usually takes up about 2 parking bays. And I presume the new premises would want the same because all BCFs have those facilities. Where are they going to be located?
They haven't been located on there at the moment because I wasn't aware of them, so we'll have to find space.
So that would have to then either take up parking or landscaping?
Possibly. It would depend on where exactly they do want to put them. There is a transition process which will take place where BCF will actually move into tenancy 2 originally, and then on completion they will actually move into tenancy 4. Okay. So it'll have to be somewhere, if we can, which is suitable for both of those 2 tenancies. I don't know what size the tanks are.
They're quite large.
Are they? So would they take up the space of a car bay?
Oh, probably 2 car bays by the time they've put the plinth in and.
Right, and it's an LPG tank or something like that, is it?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So there's probably clearances around them which would be needed.
They've got them there already at the store there now.
Right, okay. Look, we'll have to look into it. but definitely we would make place for it. If not in the car park, then there's probably space out towards the back.
So that then reduces the number of parking bays or the landscape area.
Possibly, there's quite a bit of landscape in the back which we could utilise. And certainly if there are clearances required around it, then it would probably make more sense to try and stick them down the back there somewhere as well, at the rear of the site. But yeah, any loss in carways we would make it up somewhere.
Okay.
It's taking up more landscape.
Right. Thank you. Further questions? No. Councillors, no questions?
No questions from me.
No, no questions, but it was a very good question about the gas bottles.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Thanks for that. We'll move to the officers. You just want to take questions?
Sure, yes.
You've heard the questions that I've asked of the architect. Do you have any comment on those issues?
Okay, thanks for the question. So with regard to landscaping, it is noted in the report that they do comply with the landscaping requirement. It is actually in excess. So in terms of the scheme provisions, it complies. Although having some trees within the car park would definitely be beneficial. We would support that. So yeah, we do support that condition being amended to include the trees within the car parking. I mean, obviously that will need to be looked at in more detail in terms of where they could accommodate it. But certainly we would be in favour of that. And I guess the other question with regard to, well, with car parking, again, that they more than adequately comply with the scheme requirements. So if they need to remove 2-3 car bays to accommodate the tanks, that wouldn't be a problem. I guess the only thing is we'd want that to be preferably at the rear of the site. So there's the car park to the northwest of the site at the rear. I think that would probably be the most appropriate area, but obviously there are logistics that need to be considered. But that would be the city's preferred location.
My observation of most of those stores, they're located pretty close to the entrance to the store.
Yeah. So we might need to look at that a bit more closely.
All right. Questions of the officers? No. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the item itself. Recommendation for approval with a number of conditions. Is there a mover for that? Yes, Lindsay Baxter, thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Collie, thank you. Ms. Baxter.
Thank you. I'll just say briefly, the proposed development is compliant with the strategic and statutory objectives for the area. The uses are approvable under the local planning scheme. The development has been assessed as compliant against the provisions of the local planning scheme with regard to setbacks, plot ratio, height, landscaping and car parking. The proposed buildings are template designed for their purpose and are typical of these fairly recognisable corporate businesses. So I'm prepared to support the application subject to the conditions recommended in the Responsible Authority report. I would, however, foreshadow a couple of very minor changes to a couple of conditions and an advice note, if you'd like me to bring that forward.
If you want to, and we'll see if the seconder agrees with that.
Okay. Condition number 12. Rather than the wording must obtain main roads approval, I would move to change that wording slightly to the landowner proponent making arrangements to the satisfaction of Main Roads WA for any works. Satisfaction of Main Roads WA prior to any works being undertaken in the Northwest Coastal Highway Road Reserve. Partly in relation to that condition, advice note 4 just seems to have a couple of words missing from it. On page 5 of the RAR, it needs to say, and there are some updates to the left in, left out access arrangement. So that's condition 12 and advice note 4, just foreshadowing those changes.
Okay, as a second, do you want to just read
Sure.
that condition again?
So condition 12 would say the landowner proponent making arrangements to the satisfaction of Main Roads WA, rather than the word approval being in there, prior to any works being undertaken in the Northwest Coastal Highway Road Reserve.
Okay. Councillor Collie, as seconder, do you agree with both of those?
Yes, I do, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that becomes the substantive motion. Thanks to you. Still got the floor?
That's all for me.
Okay, Councillor Collie, as seconder. Do you want to make any comments?
No, nothing further to add, thank you.
All right, thank you. Further speakers? No? I'd just like to, I support the proposal, but I would like to add into condition 13, where it says prior to an application for building permit being made, a landscaping plan inclusive of trees in the car park shall be submitted. I'm seeking a seconder for that. Yes, Mr. Syme, thank you. Any speakers on that? No, okay, well, I'll put that amendment. All those in favour? Thank you. It's carried. No further speakers. I'll go back to the mover to close the debate.
Nothing further to add, thank you.
All right, I'll put the motion to approve with the conditions and including those amended and changed. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, staff, for your attendance. Moving on to we'll just all wait for the other councillors to get. Sorry.
Good morning, Shire of Collie. This is Zoe from the RDAP Secretariat. Can I just confirm who's in the room with you, please? Good morning, Shire of Collie. This is Zoe from the RDAP Secretariat. Can I check who's in the room with you, please? Sorry, we can't hear you.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Do you want to try again?
Joe Italiano, Deputy Shire President.
Thank you.
Ian Miffling, Shire President.
Thank you.
Matthew Young, Director of Geraldton Services, Shire Collie.
Isabel Fry, Shire Manager of Planning and Development.
Thank you so much. I'll hand you over to the panel now.
Thank you very much and welcome to the councillors. Just for your benefit, I don't know if you're on earlier, but my name's Clayton Hime, the presiding member. I have with me Ms. Lindsay Baxter, the deputy presiding member, and Mr. John Syme, the third specialist member. Just going into declarations of due consideration. Are all members familiar with the material before you for this item? Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you, councillors. Are there any disclosures of interest?
No.
No? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on then to the item, which is the proposed steel mill. We have some presenters for this today. So I'll hand over to, is it Aslan Ho?
Get there 3 minutes.
Mr. Ho and company, if you'd like to. Morning.
Morning. Thanks to members of the RDAP and the Shire for giving us a chance to present here. Can everyone hear me all right? So I just thought I'd start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land and their connection to land, water, and the community. So, sorry. Oh, right, okay. Yes. Except that we're at the end of the presentation.
Oh.
Right, so maybe I'll start. So steel making accounts for over 7% of global CO2 emissions. It's quite a problem that the world's trying to solve. And one of the easiest or the simplest ways to reduce the emissions from steel is to just recycle it. I mean, there's lots of talk about hydrogen steel making and all kinds of cool stuff, but at the end of the day, steel recycling is really a really good way to do it. So steel is the most recycled material in the world. If you recycle it, there's not only the CO2 emissions and benefits, but also just less mining, less energy usage. There are lots of benefits overall. But we don't actually recycle any of our steel in Western Australia. All of it gets exported. We're also the world's largest exporter of iron ore and producer of iron ore. But we don't produce any steel. We never have. Western Australia has never produced steel. It's one of the really strange things that's I think it's a bit of a tragedy, really. And then across Australia, the steel industry has been in decline for the last 30 years. So we haven't built a new steel mill in 30 years. The US, in the same time, has built over 40. And nearly all of the American new mills have been recycling. So I think we're hoping that we can change that with the Collie steel mill. And so I might skip through some of these. So I guess, yeah, so we're planning on establishing a 450,000 ton steel recycling mill in Collie. The mill will take 500,000 tons of our scrap steel and convert it into reinforcement bar and wire rod for local construction use. We're hoping that the mill will be our first step towards a green steel industry in Western Australia. I think the combination of the energy transition and the move for the world towards green steel just presents a huge opportunity for Western Australia. So our iron ore exports added up about $100 billion last year, but that actually became nearly $500 billion of steel. So someone else, I guess, derived another $500 billion in economic value from that. So if we could just capture even 10% of that, that's an enormous difference to our economy. And then I think just looking a bit more locally, the project we see the project as the first step towards turning Collie into a green manufacturing hub for the Southwest. It will generate, so we'll need 200 workers for the plant. So we've engaged EY to do a bit of an economic study, and they think there will be between 560 odd long-term jobs within Collie as well. So nearly half what we'll need to help Collie transition from its current coal mining and power generation industry towards the newer industries. And then overall, it'll add $2.5 billion to Western Australia's economy over the life of the project. So, and obviously recycling that 500,000 tons of scrap steel that we send overseas every year. So I think for us it's a great opportunity for Collie, but I think sort of a step towards something really big for the state. That's what we're hoping for as well. Just skip through that. So the plant, we've partnered with a company called Denelli who specialise in these mills. The plant will be, it's based on the mini mill technology that's been around for, I think we'll be number 37 in the world of what's essentially the same plant. So we know what it will do. It's a known quantity. It's safe. It's not a science experiment. Like that's a big thing for us. So we're pretty confident that it'll be the most efficient and cleaner steel mill in Australia when it gets running. Jobs for Collie, I think we're talking about this. So steel mill, I think we've done a bit of had a look around in Collie at the workers in Collie, and a steel mill. I guess the skills required for a steel mill are almost a perfect match for existing coal mining and power station workers. So we've got the perfect workforce in Collie. We've got energy there. I think, and so yeah, Collie's sort of a great spot for the mill too. And then, sorry, besides jobs, steel mills tend to sort of grow lots of other businesses around them. And so in addition to the $400 million investment we'll be making in Collie, we're expecting a good $300 million of local spend in Collie that will require a whole bunch of businesses to keep the mill going, from cleaning, consulting, trading, maintenance businesses and all the rest. So I think there'll be, and we were in Singapore last week visiting a steel mill there. It was really interesting with a steel mill in the middle, but what had sort of grown all around the mill were additional businesses to cut and bend rebar, produce wire rod. So you end up with a whole host of other sort of downstream businesses all clustering around the mill. So that's what we're hoping for in Collie as well. And so just a bit of context. So we'll be located just north of Griffin Coal Mine, between the Collie Power Station and Blue Waters. So where the green patch is there, and just about 800 meters north of the Griffin Coal Rail Loop, which we'll be using for most of our transport on the site. And so, how are we going to coming close?
Only meant to be 3 minutes.
Yep. All right. Oh, sorry. Yep. Look, maybe I'll wrap it up there. I was going to talk through stakeholder engagement, which I think you've seen in the documentation. So we've engaged extensively there with everyone else. But maybe I thought I'd finish off there with what the next two presentations will be about. So Max will take you through, I guess, some of the operational aspects for the mill, how we plan to move material in and out, and how it all fits in with the surrounding areas, just how the mill works. And then Aaron will come along next to then talk through, I guess, the planning aspects of the mill and how we'll align with the future plans for putting together.
Okay, thank you. We've got a questions for them when we've done all the presentations.
Yes, okay, yeah. On the next.
Thanks, if you could keep it to 3 minutes.
Yes.
Just project your voice, have a stick to
Very good. Do I just flick through or?
Yeah, Aaron?
Like that. Good morning all. Max from Green Steel WA. Firstly, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands throughout WA and pay respects to the communities around the state. As Len said, we'll turn WA scrap into rebar for construction. We'll do that using an electric arc furnace steel mill. So scrap will come in via rail through the scrapyard, be melted and refined in our melt shop, cast and rolled in the rolling mill, and then automatically cut up, bundled, tied and stacked for export. And to support that process, we'll have water treatment, fume treatment, and a slag storage area. In terms of logistics, like I said, scrap and most of our consumables will come in via rail. Rebar and most of our secondary outputs will leave on the same trains, and there's some allowance for truck traffic for things that aren't suitable for rail transport, like industrial and natural gases. In terms of services and infrastructure, we'll extend the road from Boys Home Road to our site. We'll have a rail extension from the existing Griffin Coal Balloon Loop. Gas and industrial gas, natural gas will be trucked and stored on site. Electricity from Blue Water's own substation, water from Border Corp via a new private pipeline, and all wastewater will be treated and reused on site. Inputs and outputs of the process are very well understood from Denelli, having delivered more than 25 of these mills. Of note here is the slag, which will be sold for use in road construction. Mill scale, which is a rust, basically, that'll get sold for iron recovery, and EAF dust from the fume treatment plant filters, which will be sold for zinc recovery mainly. In the context of the Collie airshed, our air emissions are quite minimal in terms of cumulative impact, and I suppose even with the improvement in the airshed, as the power stations are decommissioned, they're still well within all EPA limits. Traffic impact due to the use of rail is quite minimal and mostly limited to staff coming and going to and from work. Air modelling has shown that there's no adverse noise modelling, has shown no adverse impacts to sensitive receptors in the area. That was fast enough, so there's a bonus slide. EAF slag was actually used to resurface the Formula One track in Melbourne due to its excellent grip properties. Thank you. Over to you, Aaron.
Over to Aaron. Thank you.
Is it best if I share presentation at my end?
Yes, thanks, Aaron. And again, if you can keep it to 3 minutes, would be appreciated.
Yes, not a problem. Let me just get that. Just taking note of some of the comments that Max and Aslan have made. So let me just get this full screen. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, and apologies if I'm a bit choppy and remote at the moment. But thank you to the panel members, Shire of Collie staff for getting to where we are today. This is a major opportunity for decarbonisation of industry in Western Australia, a major opportunity for recycling, and it's not through the timeless effort of the Shire, its staff, Green Steel and various government departments and agencies that we've gotten to a position now where a development application is recommended for approval to the Development Assessment Panel. There are a number of slides, but just taking some of the feedback around time and some of the comments already made. I will go through this very quickly and take the rest as read. The Coolangatta Industrial Estate is really the emerging industrial estate for the Collie district and is going to be the real heartbeat of this part of the southwest. Green Steel is the first major proponent, along with other approvals recently as part of the broader Coolangatta estate owned by Blue Waters Farms and Synergy. Has a real opportunity to provide jobs, growth and opportunity for the Collie district as they move away from coal mining activity and power station generation. I would like to press that this is not the first development approval to occur in this wider precinct. It has been piecemeal over a number of years. There's appreciating the panel members hadn't had the opportunity of a site visit. There is a fairly significant large vehicle training area already on Lot 2, Boys Home Road. There was a development approval issued by a different DAP panel a number of months ago for a major battery facility on Synergy-owned land to the east, and then beyond the Boys Home Road precinct. Specifically, there is also other industry popping up in and around the Collie area. Green Steel has been engaging with Department of Jobs, Tourism, Science and Innovation for a number of years on this project. There is structure planning underway in the background. That engagement has been very close. I would like to say, without necessarily being fully involved in that process, that process is in its infancy, that we're at the stage where we're assessing land use and infrastructure demands, but that because of its infancy, Green Steel has been able to engage fully with that process, and that the process is aligning itself around what is going to be the major proposal for the Coolangatta Industrial Estate. If it wasn't picked up in the material with the RAR, there was a submission from the department that was fully supportive of the application. Despite all that, this area has been earmarked for more detailed planning for a number of years in the Shire's local planning scheme. As Max briefly ran through, all those considerations have informed Green Steel's plans for this site. So I won't necessarily run through those in detail. They are documented fairly well in the planning submission and also in the RAR. Some particular matters I'd like to draw attention to around bushfire protection. and certainly the staff of the Shire have been engaging with Synergy and other, with DFS and other agencies on this matter, is around secondary access to the precinct. The bushfire submission with this application demonstrates consistency with state planning policies and the associated guidelines, but there is a recognised need, that recognised opportunity to provide a secondary access point to the precinct, which Green Steel is fully supportive of, and will continue outside of the development application process to work with those agencies to deliver that. Rail extension. So the application is supported and signed by DBCA as a management authority for the state forest to the south of the mill area. There are a number of complexities in providing that rail extension, to do with tenure, to do with access over the existing Griffin created rail loop. But I can assure the panel that Green Steel has been working very closely with Griffin, very closely with DBCA and DeWer over a number of years, to ensure that there is a clear pathway, again, taking these points in the slide as read, towards provision of that loop. And in the event that that loop can't be provided, appropriate conditions from the Shire recommended in the RAR to ensure the application comes back for re-evaluation should a greater number of movements need to be accommodated for a large vehicle to the site. As I said, these are ongoing negotiations. They take decision-making pathways across a number of agencies, across a number of different considerations, all of which can't be solved through a development approval. But I can assure you that Green Steel has been working very closely with all of those agencies to facilitate what is a necessary piece of infrastructure to connect this mill to the wider southwest region and ensure economic production of steel material for the whole state. I may just leave it there. I'm not sure how I was going for time on that, but yeah, more than happy to cede that time to any questions the panel may have.
Okay. Thanks, Aaron. Panel members, are there questions of any of the presenters? Mr. Syme.
Yes, maybe Mr. Ho. What's your... Yeah.
Sorry, they're online.
Thank you. What's your power source? Is that off the grid, or have we got a specific dedicated power source?
Off the grid to start.
Off the grid.
Further questions? Yes.
Thank you. You can to Mr. Aslan. When do you anticipate commencement of development if this was to be granted approval?
Early next year.
Next year, okay. And completion by?
The end of 26.
Okay, and operational then as well? Okay.
Transition into operations from there. Yep.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Further questions? No? No. No. We'll move to the officers. Are there any comments you want to make, officers, or you're just happy to take questions?
Look, I'll make a couple of comments if I can, and it's really just to go into the issue relating to existing structure plans and emerging structure plans in this area. It's one of the primary issues, I think, from the Shire's perspective. So there is an existing structure plan which was originally drafted in 2010 and was updated in 2019. We recognise and have always recognised that structure plan doesn't contemplate this development, even though the wider Coolangatta industrial area zoning has been in place, in fact, over consecutive town planning schemes. There is no comprehensive structure plan over the entirety of the Coolangatta industrial estate. JITSI has been working with the Shire and other stakeholders in this area, and has been initially undertook a planning study over the precinct in 2022. That was finalised. That identified all of the primary issues. So matters relating to service connection, matters relating to access into the precinct, secondary access options, which has been worked through with main roads. The involvement of the state, particularly around facilitating infrastructure and road intersection improvements has also been worked through consecutively with those agencies and some of those landowners. We recognise that the existing structure plan simply identifies this land as being part of a future possible stockpile for the Blue Waters power station. That's been operating for many years, and from an operational perspective, there's no requirement for that power station to extend their coal stores into this land. Their coal facility is a system where coal's mined from the Griffin coal mine immediately to the south of that power station. That the coal was dug up, sorted and delivered via a conveyor belt directly to the power station, and there is a stockpile which sits to the immediate south of that power station. This facility, and it's important to note that this facility sits within the same land holding as the Blue Waters power station. So I think from a critical asset perspective, we're very clear and comfortable. Blue Waters themselves have been highly engaged into this process. So has Griffin Coal, in the way that the state agreement operates and services both the needs for the power station and the operational requirements for the coal mine to continue to operate. I think that's a really critical aspect in this area, because we certainly need to make sure that the state's lights remain on and there's no compromise in terms of the planning for in and around those facilities. The rest of the site is commonly owned, and so all of the internal access arrangements are derived through the same site. So the only connection actually out onto the public system from a transport perspective is via Boys Home Road, which has always been the primary access into this estate. Those arrangements are very clear, and there's a clear pathway that's been provided for through this site into that public system. The rest of the facility is accessed from a transport perspective, will access via rail, which will deliver the materials in, and there's a lot of work happening at the highest level of government to facilitate that. I think from the Shire's perspective, we appreciate that this approval is contingent upon all of those other approvals coming into place in time, and we accept that those arrangements are obviously being worked through by the proponent now. So in terms of the proper and orderly planning of the area, the very close relationship, and because the planning study was undertaken at such a great detail by Urbis for Jitsi on behalf of, I suppose, the Shire, or behalf of the state to undertake the planning for Coolangatta. The structure planning is it's in its infancy, as Aaron described, insofar as we haven't have a draft document lodged with the council, but there are drafts and workings of that which have always accommodated the green steel facility as part of its thinking, and those details are being worked up with all of the agencies, and there generally is an alignment in terms of the understanding, awareness of issues, and the solutions for that industrial estate. So we're comfortable from the view of it being inconsistent with the current structure plan as something that it's been accommodated for, planned for, and won't fetter or compromise the orderly and proper planning of the rest of the Coolangatta industrial estate.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Members of the panel, are there questions of Mr. Young or Ms. Fry? Would it be fair to say, I think you've sort of covered it, but it would be fair to say that given that a structure plan is only a due regard document anyway, that there is sufficient overall intent in the planning framework to recognise that this proposal is in fact aligns with the broader planning framework rather than just the structure plan.
Yes, thank you. I would concur with that view. One of the key parameters in terms of the consideration of this application is that the town planning scheme in establishing the requirements for structure planning sets out all of the considerations that a structure plan needs to accommodate. And through discussions with the proponents, we have ensured that this application addresses all of those requirements. And so acknowledging that as running in advance of that, they've have been required to produce all of the evidence that the structure plan would have done, albeit on a site on a site basis. And so they have addressed the scheme requirements by default as an earlier runner of the structure planning process. So in terms of meeting and addressing those concerns, we're absolutely confident that they have addressed what we would expect out of a structure plan, and it is consistent with the work that it's been undertaken at a state level for structure planning more generally.
Thank you, Mr. Young. No questions from panel members? No? Okay, thank you for that. We'll move on to the item, recommendation for approval with conditions. Is there a mover for the recommendation for approval? Yes, that's Councillor
Italiano.
Councillor Italiano, thank you. And a seconder for that? I'll second. I've got Councillor
Miffling.
Councillor Miffling, thank you. Councillor Italiano, as the mover, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, presiding member. I've moved this because I believe it's a very good project and it fits in really well with what's happening in Collie with our just transition process. We, as a Shire, like the recycling and decarbonising factors in this proposal. We also see that the skilled jobs that it would provide are in keeping with the type of jobs that are likely to be lost in the coal mining and power generation industries. And we see the site as being very, very suitable for this type of activity. I'd also like to point out with recommending the approval that there are a number of conditions attached to in the RAR, which I believe cover most areas that are likely to be of concern to anyone having a look at this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Miffling as seconder.
Yes, thank you, presiding member. Yes, look, I concur with the comments that Councillor Italiano has just spoken, but particularly from the council's point of view, this Coolangatta industrial estate has been in the formation for a long, long time. And when you take into account where this particular green steel proposal is to be sited within that industrial estate, it doesn't impinge upon anything to do with the town itself, the residential component of our community. It is quite remote from, so the council, in terms of noise, air pollutions or any other considerations that might be thought to be injurious towards our community, are really non-existent in this particular case. It is, in terms of the residential area, you would almost call it remote. So the potential for any impacts are just not there. The conditions that are attached to this recommendation quite adequately, in the council's view, take care of all of the elements that the proponents have yet to satisfy, but they will come in time. This planning application really is the green light, as far as the council is concerned, for the proponents to then move along and get those other aspects of the conditions in place. So I think the council is well supportive, and the community, I might say, is well supportive of this application, and we do recommend it from the council's point of view. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Further speakers, Mr. Syme.
Yes, look, I do know this area quite well. Coolangatta is one of the more important areas of industrial land in the state, really, and particularly in the southwest, but particularly in the state. I think it's going to form a very important area of economic development generally for the whole state, and this project, I think, ticks just about every box you can think of. It's a very important project. It's got very wide significance. I think it's been approached in a particularly skillful way. Clearly, all of the agencies are aligned with it. It's very forward-looking. That the planning framework is not quite caught up with it doesn't mean that we shouldn't approve it, because clearly we've got sufficient evidence that the planning framework is on its way to catching up with it. I think we should. There's nothing in this which wouldn't allow us to really quite enthusiastically support this. So, as I say, it's a very important project, and I think it's one which I'm pleasantly surprised at the time frame that they're going to be on site within a year or so for such an important project and such a forward-looking project. I think is a very good sign for us all. So this can be approved quite easily, I think.
Thank you. Ms. Baxter.
Thank you. I too would like to speak in support of the motion. The proposed application is for a steel mill which creates product from recycled material. Unsurprisingly, a steel mill is not a listed use in the land use table of the local planning scheme. Nevertheless, it is a use that can be considered under the general realm of industrial classification. I've noted the rigorous assessment contained in the RAR, and I'm content with the benefit of discretion that this is an approvable use. The planning report submitted on behalf of the proponents is comprehensive, and it is noted that the detail contained therein is sufficient in lieu of the matters that may be required for consideration of a structure plan for the site. Accordingly, it's my view the proposed development is generally compliant with the overarching legislation and the strategic and statutory objectives for the site and the Coolangatta industrial area. Notwithstanding the benefit of historical coal mining and associated industry for Collie, the proposed development at 400 million is a significant investment in this region with attenuate construction and employment benefits. From a planning point of view, accordingly, I'm prepared to support the application. It wouldn't be me if I didn't foreshadow some possible small administrative changes just to bring the decision into some compliance. If you'd like me to go through those, and perhaps with the indulgence of the motion mover and seconder. Okay, firstly, in the preamble where it talks about that the Regional Development Assessment Panel resolves to, I think actually the number 1 could probably be removed from that and the sentence just run on. It's really just an administrative thing there. With condition B, just really a little bit of a typographical, where the sentence talks about stormwater and drainage management is to be, I think that word should be are to be, because we're talking about detailed construction drawings plural, so the word just needs to be are there. In condition P, the sentence should read, prior to the development operating, the applicant is to submit an amended bushfire management plan. I just would sort of comment about some of the conditions in that some of them talk about prior to commencement, some of them talk about issue of a building permit, some of them talk about development operating, and some of them talk about occupancy of a building permit, an occupancy permit. I won't seek to change those, although I'd probably like to see those be a little bit more consistent. Finally, however, though, and I did have a look at the Shire of Collie's website in terms of how it would normally issue decisions. I think the conditions would be better off to be numbered rather than using lowercase alphabetical letters. So I put a motion forward that all conditions be renumbered A right through to X, from 1 right through to 24. And having regard to that, if that's supported, that advice note 7 would then refer to condition 3, and advice note 9 would refer to condition 5.
All right, we have a proposed amendment. Is there a seconder for that? John, thank you. Okay, I'm guessing there are no speakers. This?
I put forward my reasons in that legislation follows a conventional numbering system using a number followed by alphabetical letters. There's a sort of a sequential way that legislation follows, and I think decisions should also follow the same sort of format.
All right, being no further speakers, I'll put that amendment. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Floor still with you?
Is it okay? That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Look, I this proposal is a very exciting one, obviously for Collie, but also the whole state. I fully support the proposal and congratulate the proponents on the work they've put into it so far. And like Mr. Symes said, I think the timeframe is if they keep to that timeframe, I think that would be absolutely fantastic for Collie and the state. And I also agree with the comments made by Ms. Baxter about the planning framework. I'm quite comfortable that this fits within what is the intent for this industrial area. So with no further ado, I'll move back to the mover, Councillor Italiano, to close the debate.
Oh, look, I'm satisfied with the discussion to date, and yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor. I'll put the motion as amended. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on and wait for the councillors from Harvey to come on board.
There we go.
Good morning, Shire of Harvey. This is Zoe from the DAP Secretariat. Could I just please confirm who's in the room with you?
Good morning, Louise. Councillor Michelle Campbell, Shire President.
Councillor Craig Caboni.
Elizabeth Edwards for the Shire.
And Ben Vogel for the Shire.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, and welcome to the Regional Development Assessment Panel meeting. Just for your benefit, I'm Clayton Heim, the presiding member, and with me is Ms. Lindsay Baxter, who's the deputy presiding member, and Mr. John Syme, the third specialist member. Just getting some confirmation from panel members, the declaration of due consideration. Have you, or are you familiar with the material before you for this item?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Are there any disclosures of interest?
No.
Thank you. Moving on then to the item. Sorry, turn my page. We've got a presentation from Mr. Wilcott. Mr. Wilcott, 3 minutes if you can. Thank you.
Very aware, thank you. Good morning to the panel and to councillors in the Shire of Harvey and staff. My name's Michael Wilcock. I work at Taylor Barrell Barnett. We're the consulting firm for Kemet and DB Proprietary Limited. Our client operates the existing power station since it was constructed, and it provides peaking load power to the grid. So it's not operating very much at all. It's not a consistently run power station like the Muges of the world and the Collie thermal coal down south. What our client's looking at doing is upgrading a number of peaking stations on the network. So there's an approval in Northern recently issued for converting a peaking station from diesel to a battery. Next week we've got one at Picton East, so we'll probably see you again there. And there's another set of projects that need to be undertaken, and that's part of the request from us to the panel for consideration is looking at updating condition 1. The Shire of Harvey expressed their support for changing the duration of the condition from 2 years to 4. That just ties in with the client's operational requirements to decommission some project sites and commissioning this site. So it just works a little bit more in favour of the overall program of works that needs to be undertaken. And that will just ensure that we don't have to come back in 2 years seeking an extension and lead to some administrative hiccups, or burdens going forward. So we would appreciate consideration of just the standard 4-year as per the regs planning reform that's recently been undertaken. Our other request was just in consultation with the Shire, we understand that a stormwater management plan, a water management plan wasn't deemed required by the Shire's engineers, and our own geotechnical report attached to the application confirmed that there were no groundwater conditions identified. We've got about 5 metres of depth of sand, I believe, underneath the project area. So we are confident that more of an ongoing condition, such as stormwater, must be contained and disposed of on site to the satisfaction of the Shire of Harvey, we consider provides an ongoing condition of comfort for the Shire, for officers, and if there is a compliance or a drainage issue, noting that we've got about 1 hectare of leased land. There's sufficient land available to our client to install drainage works if needed for what they're going to do, or if there's a need to rectify something going forwards. So we're very thankful to the Shire for being available to discuss our project since November. We did a lot of pre-lodgement consultation, so the assessment process has been very streamlined and very pleasing to see the recommendation to the panel this morning.
Thank you very much. Questions of the presenters? No, councillors? No questions? No. Good, I've just got 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move to the officers. You want to make any?
Sorry, you broke up a bit there.
Sorry, do you want to make any comments or happy just to take questions?
I just want to make a quick comment, about the 4th condition that Michael mentioned regarding stormwater. So we preferentially would stay with how we've written it in the actual RAR, just as we would like some clarification that they are providing sufficient stormwater containment on the site. Just in regard to the condition Michael has put forward, we just wouldn't get that certainty that enough containment would be provided on that site.
Right. Questions of the officers? Just on within the RAR, talking about the bushfire issues there. On the first dot point there, you talk about BMP and by way of ongoing vegetation management, which can be considered as a condition of approval, but I don't think there's any condition of approval in relation to that.
Just in regard to that one, we didn't really find it necessary to add that as a condition of approval.
And then further questions? No? No? All right. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the item then. We have recommendation for approval with conditions. Is there a mover for that? Yes, Lindsay Baxter, thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Okay, thank you. Okay, over to you.
Thank you. The proposal is for 2 diesel power peaking stations, which appear to be an adjunct and complementary use to existing development on the site. It is an industrial use and development, complies with the strategic intent of both the Greater Bunbury Region Scheme and the Shire of Harvey Local Planning Scheme and the Structure Plan for Kemerton. It is noted that there is a small degree of non-compliance with regard to some specific provisions of the local planning scheme. But as described in the Responsible Authority report, this is not fatal to the proposed development. This is infrastructure which isn't beautiful, but it is functional. Accordingly, I'm prepared to move the motion to approve it. I will foreshadow that I'm prepared to agree with the modification as advocated by the applicant for condition number 1, as in to change the approval period from 2 years to 4 years. That keeps it consistent with regulations, etc. Noting the comment from the Shire, be inclined to stay with condition number 4 as recommended in the RAR.
Councillor Campbell, you as seconder, are you happy to agree with that modification?
Yes, I'm very happy. Thank you.
Okay, so that becomes the substantive motion then that we're dealing with. The floor's still with you.
Nothing further to add.
Nothing
Thank you.
further. Councillor Campbell as seconder. Any
Yeah,
comments
nothing
you want to
further
make?
to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further speakers in this matter? Yes, Mr. Syme.
Yeah, look, this is an important piece of infrastructure. Actually, Kemerton's has had problems with power for some time, and this is a backup, I think, or a peaking load facility. I think it's very important that it's there. The general conditions and the general issues on bushfire in particular have been, I think, satisfactorily addressed by the Shire, and I think we can approve it. So I think we can approve this quite happily.
Thank you. Further speakers? No. I'm happy to support the proposal, and I agree with the comments made by Mr. Syme. This is a fairly important piece of additional infrastructure that can readily be supported. So back to Ms. Baxter as the.
Thank you. Nothing further to add.
Okay, thank you. I'll put the motion with the conditions. All in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. There are no form to applications and no SAT matters. Just to close the meeting out, there's no SAT items, and I guess there's no general business, and I'll close the meeting at 10:36. Thank you for your attendance.